Okay, welcome to part 2 of our lesson. So we are on page 127 in your student's book, page 127, exercise 3, communicate. So it says, imagine you are going to take a weekend trip. Choose the location. Write 3 things you need to do before the trip. Okay, so let's take a look at the example conversation. Where will you go on your trip? To the mountains. Okay, and of course, if you want to practice making a full sentence, you can say, I will go to the mountains. Okay, and then, what will you do first? I'll reserve a campsite. What will you do after you reserve a campsite? I'll pack warm clothes. And again, you can say, I'll pack warm clothes after I reserve a campsite. Okay, and then, what will you do after that? So you can say, I'll pack my camping supplies after that. Or after that, I'll pack my camping supplies. So, as you can see, you have to use after clauses. And you can also use before clauses at the beginning of the conversation. So, as you can see, it says, write 3 things you need to do before the trip. So here, even though it says, what will you do first, you can also say, what will you do before you go on your trip? What will you do before you go on your trip? Okay? But if you want to be more specific, of course, you can use first. What will you do first? Okay, so go ahead and take some time to do this activity. This will be good to do with someone in your family. Maybe you can ask your children, hey, imagine you are going to take a weekend trip. I'm sure your children want to go somewhere out of the house. So if you want, you can practice with them. And this way, you can also practice making questions like, where will you go on your trip? What will you do first? What will you do after you reserve a campsite? Okay, what will you do after that? These are really helpful as well, and we are going to make some more questions later anyway. So if you want, it would be a good time to practice making questions as you practice with a partner. Okay, so I'm going to give you some time to do this activity, and of course, if you cannot practice with a partner, then just do this on your own, but make sure you practice the conversation format. So ask questions and answer them, and make sure you use before and after. Now, when you are just talking casually, you don't always need to make full sentences for the answers. You can just keep it simple, like to the mountains. That's fine. But later, when you make sentences and if you want to study more, then it's good to practice making the full sentences, including the before and after clauses. But if you just have a conversation, you can just keep it short. But anyway, go ahead and pause the video and continue when you're finished. Okay, so I hope you had a good conversation with your partner or alone. That's fine. So anyway, just for example, I want to show you what I wrote here. So just for an example, I can put Panama City Beach as my location. So where will you go on your trip? And of course you can say to Panama City Beach. We do not use the because this is a proper noun. So remember, just to Panama City Beach. But in this case, mountains is not a proper noun. It's just a common noun, just a general location. So we can say the mountains. Or even for this one, I don't have to say Panama City Beach. I can say to the beach. Okay? So keep in mind, we use the in front of common nouns, but no the in front of proper nouns. Okay? So, to Panama City Beach. Okay, what will you do first? I'll reserve a hotel. Okay? And of course, I can say I'll reserve a hotel first. Okay? And then, what will you do after you reserve a hotel? Okay, and then I can say, I'll pack my bags after I reserve a hotel. So I'll pack my bags. That's the main clause. So we use future tense. And then after I reserve a hotel. This is simple present tense because it's included in the after clause. Okay. And by the way, pack my bags. This is just a common phrase we use when we go somewhere and we need to pack something. Now, even if you just have one bag, it's pretty common to say pack my bags. It's just the phrase that we use a lot. Now, if you want, you can also be specific and you can say, for example, you can say, pack my swimsuit. That's okay too because it's more specific. You can also say, pack my camera, or you can say, pack my beach gear. Okay, so these are more specific, and you can also even just say pack my suitcase, but again, as I mentioned, it's most common to say pack my bags. Now, someone might ask you, are you taking your swimsuit? Or maybe a parent will say to their children, make sure you pack your swimsuit. Okay, so pack my bags is just general, but you can be more specific, and someone might ask you a specific question to make sure you are including it in your bag. Okay, and then let's see, the next question. What will you do after that? Or you can also say, what will you do after you pack your bags? Okay, and then you can say, I'll look for things to do there after I pack my bags. So I'll look for things to do there. Okay. Now we are going to practice more questions and answers. So let's look at this worksheet. This one. Okay. So I want you to look at these 16 questions. What will you do before you go home today? So this one uses a before clause. Now, you are already home, most likely. So some of these questions you don't have to do. So just, read all of them, and you can use your judgment and practice the ones that make sense. Okay? What will you do before you take your next vacation? Okay? And when you answer these questions, make sure to use the before or after clause. Okay? And then, let's see, what will you do after school ends? So, our semester is ending soon. It's going to end, I think, in the middle of June, and I think I already mentioned the date to you, so I believe it is June 18th. That's the last day of our class. But anyway, so try to answer these questions. You don't have to do this one, you don't have to do this one, and even this one, because we are not in class physically. So lots of these questions you probably won't be able to do. This one, you won't be able to. But instead of before you go to class, you might just say, what will you do before you study ESL tomorrow? So you can change some of these questions if you want. Okay, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and give you some time to do this activity. And you can pause the video and continue when you're finished. Okay, now I want to look at a worksheet to practice these future time clauses a little more. So let's look at exercise A. Complete the sentences with the simple present or future form of an appropriate verb. Okay, so let's look at number 1. Before I travel to Italy, I'll study Italian. Okay, so this is the before clause, so make sure you use simple present tense. Before I travel to Italy, and this is the main clause, so we use the future tense. I'll study Italian. Okay, now there's no exact perfect or one answer for all of these. There can be more than one correct answer. So just take some time to read the sentences carefully and pay attention, of course, to words like at, like prepositions, because some words might not fit. So you want to make sure that they work with the words before and after. So just pay attention as you do this activity. Okay, so you can pause the video and continue when you're finished. Okay, so let's look at number 2. Before Vera, and now you can say goes camping if you want, and then let's say she will buy a tent, okay? Or you can say she will look for a tent. That's fine too. So will buy or will look for a tent, okay? Again, this is the before clause, so you need to make this present tense, okay? Before Vera goes camping, okay? Let's look at number 3. After Angela. Now, in this case, we cannot use goes because it says at. When we say go, we have to say go to. But because it says at, we need to use arrives, okay? Or, actually, yeah, arrives is the best answer because of at. So after Angela arrives at the airport, we can say will, meet, just a second, let's do that again. She will meet her parents, or you can say she will pick up her parents, okay? Or she will, maybe even she will drop off her parents, because we don't know if she's arriving to pick up or drop off her parents. But this probably makes the most sense. Okay. And then number 4, Pablo and June. This is the main clause, so we need to use will here. Pablo and June will, we can say make a fire, or we can say start a fire. After they, we could say gather some wood, or we can say collect some wood. Let's see, this is the after clause, and they is third person plural, so no S, just gather or collect. Number 5, Wanda. This is also the main clause, so we can say will, maybe we can say get a new cell phone, or will buy a new cell phone. Before she, we can say goes to Europe, okay? Or you can also say travels to Europe, okay? And then number 6, after we, sorry about that. Okay, so we can say after we have breakfast. No, that didn't work. Let's try again. After we have breakfast, or we can say after we eat breakfast, okay? Now, sometimes I hear some students saying take breakfast, but we cannot say take breakfast in American English. We use have breakfast or eat breakfast. Okay, so you can say will pay. Now, another thing we sometimes use is we will take care of. Okay, now take care of, now usually, we use it for people, like take care of the baby, but you can also say take care of the bill. That means pay the bill. So we will take care of our hotel bill, or pay our hotel bill. Okay, now, let's go to exercise B. Rewrite the sentences. Use before or after. So number 1, before I go to Paris, I'll learn French. And then we have to use after. So we say after I learn French, and remember, change it to simple present tense, and then use I go to Paris, but main clause, so we need to use future tense. I'll go to Paris. Okay, so the meaning is the same. Before I go to Paris, I'll learn French. Or after I learn French, I'll go to Paris. Same meaning. Okay, so go ahead and complete numbers 2 through 6, and you can pause the video and continue when you're finished. Okay, so let's look at number 2. Luis and Paolo will buy a street map after they check into their hotel. Okay, so the first activity is check into their hotel. And the second is Luis and Papa will buy a street map. So let's use before. We can say before Luis and Paolo buy a street map, because remember now this needs to be present tense. They will check into their hotel. Now, of course, you can say Luis and Paolo will check into their hotel before they buy a street map. Okay, so it just depends on which phrase you want to put first. But whatever you put first, just put the name there. So Luis and Paolo, or you can say Luis and Paolo will check into their hotel before they buy a street map. Okay, number 3. Before Alicia goes on vacation, she will visit her cousins in Florida. Okay, so Alicia goes on vacation. Now, this is the second activity, and visit her cousins in Florida is the first activity. So we can say, after Alicia visits her cousins in Florida, she will go on vacation. Okay. So again, you can say after, you can say Alicia will go on vacation after she visits her cousins in Florida. Okay, number 4. We will take the city tour before we have lunch. Okay. So we have lunch is the second activity, and take the city tour is the first activity. So we can say, we will have lunch after we take the city tour. Okay? And of course you can say, after we take the city tour, comma, we will have lunch. Okay. And then number 5, after Sam and Cindy eat dinner, they will go to a dance club. So let's use before. Oh, actually, you know what I realized? Okay, now, I didn't see this earlier, but if you can see that the after starts with a capital letter, so we need to start with after. But in this case, before starts with a lowercase, so we actually need to put it in the middle. Now this one's capital, this one's lowercase, this one's capital, this one's lowercase. So when it is lowercase, we need to actually put it in the middle. So let me do this sentence one more time. So now of course this sentence is still correct, but let's say Luis and Paolo will check into their hotel before they buy a street map. Okay, now as you can see, before is lowercase, so it's in the middle of the sentence, or we put the before clause at the end instead of at the beginning. Okay, so if you need to change your answers based on the capital and lowercase, you can pause the video and quickly do that and then resume. So I'll give you some time to do that. But as I mentioned, it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, the meaning is the same anyway. Okay, so let's see. Now this one is correct because the after is capital and we put it in the beginning, and then this one is lowercase, so we put it at the end. Okay, so now number 5. We use before in the beginning because it's capitalized. So we can say before they go to a dance club, comma, Sam and Cindy will eat dinner. Actually, this is still correct actually, but as I mentioned, you can go ahead and put the name first. So Sam and Cindy go to a dance club. They will eat dinner. Okay, let's go ahead and do number 6. Omar will finish packing his suitcase before he watches a movie. Okay, so we have to use after in the middle, or put the after clause at the end. So we can say Omar will watch a movie after he finishes, remember third person singular, so we need to say finishes, packing his suitcase. Okay, Omar will watch a movie after he finishes packing his suitcase. Okay, so now you can go ahead and go to part 3 of this video. Okay, part 3.